Before we watched TV shows and movies on Narcos, and even before Pablo Escobar's rise to fame, there was one man who was the ultimate narco. He lived the narco life of greed, money, and power, but found a way to reclaim his life and use his astonishing experiences to empower others to live a life of hope, meaning, and redemption. Welcome to the Narco Mindset Podcast, where Dr. Jorge Valdes shares his journey through life before and after the Medellin Drug Cartel, from torture and multiple prison sentences to how he refocused his life onto a path of principles learned as a narco. It's time to share that raw truth with you, right here on the Narco Mindset Podcast, with your host, Dr. Jorge Valdes.
Today on the Narco Mindset Podcast. For me, owning my own company, that was the greatest mission field. My employees, my customers, and I can tell you story after story. And he said, I'm a Christian too. And I was just wanting to see if you were for real or not. I had to fight twice as hard. I've always had to work twice as hard in America to be accepted. Because I wanted my children to realize that the world they lived in was not real. So we are in a war for the soul of our children. Because I believe that freedom does not come by financial success. Welcome to the Narco Mindset Podcast. My name is Dr. Jorge Valdes, and I am your host. You know, in the last podcast, we talked about all the challenges the African-American community and people of color face. You know, today I want to talk about a song that Garth Brooks wrote in 1992 and is so much more relevant today. But yet, if we think about it, here's Garth Brooks in 1992 writing a song as what he was seeing that was going on during this time. Just a country western singer, not a prophet, not a preacher, not a political commentator. He was asked to do the national anthem at the Super Bowl, and he agreed to it on the condition that they would play this video that he had made about this song, We Shall Be Free. The interesting thing was that the video was very, very controversial during that time. Let me read the words to you, and I think about it. This is 1992, and that's 28 years, away from today. And the song goes like this. This ain't coming from no prophet, just an ordinary man. When I close my eyes, I see the way this world shall be, when we all walk hand in hand, when the last child cries for a crust of bread, when the last man dies for just the words that he said, when there's shelter over the poorest head, we shall be free. When the last thing that we notice is the color of the skin, and the first thing we look for is the beauty within, when the skies and the oceans are clean again, then we shall be free. We shall be free, we shall be free. Stand straight, walk proud, because we shall be free. When we're free to love anyone we choose, when this world's big enough for all the different views, when we all can worship from our own kind of pew, then we shall be free, we shall be free. Interesting that he said that he's no prophet, but 28 years later we look at him, wow, what prophetic words. But what struck me the most about the song was that in 28 years, it seems like nothing has happened. We've had so many different presidents. We've had Democratic, Republican president. We had African-American president. We had all kinds of presidents. We've had all kinds of Congress and all kinds of Senate. We have all kinds of governors. And then we look at the world, and it is no different than it was in 1992. When you think about that 1 in every 6 child goes to bed at night hungry, then you think about those breads when the last child cries for a crust of bread, and you realize how relevant they are. So do you realize that the most powerful country on earth, America, has done nothing to eliminate child poverty and child hunger here in America? We've done a lot to feed people in Africa, and that's a wonderful thing. But you know what? When I used to be asked, do I want to go overseas and preach, or do I want to go overseas and do missions? I said, of course not. Why would I want to do that for? And they're like, well, I thought you were a Christian. I said, I am. But to me, the biggest mission field in the world is right here in America. For me, owning my own company, that was the greatest mission field. My employees, my customers. And I can tell you story after story. I'll tell you one story one time. We were called to a fire on a Sunday afternoon. And when we got there, I see this whole bunch of people sitting out in the yard. We go into the lady, and apparently we were the last company called. And she said, look, I don't know why we even called you, because we've had 4 companies and we don't have enough coverage to even pay to clean and to restore the house, never mind our lifelong content that we lost. My sister was asked to take care of the house, and she ended up burning the house. And I looked at all those people. My wife and I were just starting our business, and we were robbing Peter to pay Paul, I'll be honest with you. And I see her, and she said, look, they're charging us $8,000 just to store our contents. They're charging us, I don't know how many thousands to clean them in the house and this and that. And it just came to my mind. I looked at her and I said, are all those friends? She said, they're my church family. I said, great. Are they willing to help you? She said, yes. I said, if you send 2 people to my office on Monday, I'll give them a gallon of a concentrate. It cost me about $240. And at that time, that was a fortune to me. I'll give them $200. I'll give them 1 gallon, and I'll teach them how to clean your content. I'll call this company that's a pod. They'll come and put it in your driveway. You can store them yourself, and it's going to cost you hardly nothing. She said, well, how much are you going to charge me for that? I said, absolutely nothing. She said, why? I said, because I'm a Christian. So I went back into the car, and my wife said, did you get the job? I said, no, not only did I not get the job, I did get some work, but we gave away our last gallon of the concentrate to clean fire damages. She didn't say nothing because my wife, the amazing woman that she is, she knew right away what had come into my heart. On Monday morning, the adjuster calls, and he's like, I want to talk to the owner. And he's talking to my wife, and my wife, he starts to really get angry and starts saying, you know, this is the lowest of the lowest. My wife said, what are you talking about? And he says, well, you told these people you're not going to charge them anything, but then you're going to go ahead and send me a bill. And if we don't pay it, and if they don't pay it, you lien their house, and they're going to be screwed. And my wife said, no, we're not charging them anything. He said, well, why would you do that? My wife said, because we are Christians. And we don't have much, she said. We are struggling enormously. We don't have the money to give away the only gallon of a concentrate that we have, because it costs us $200 some odd. But at least we have a roof over our head that is not burnt, and they don't. So when she told us that she was a Christian, she said, I heard that crap before, and hung up the phone. Well, they came over on Monday. We showed them how to do the job. We gave them that gallon, and I struggled. All that Sunday. Oh my God, why did I do that? Why did I do that? But something kept saying to me, look at your roof. It's clean. You don't have a fire in your house. So a week passed, 2 weeks passed, and the 3rd week, I get a call from that adjuster. And he says, meet me at Heritage School. It was a big private school in in southwest suburb of Atlanta. And I get there, and he said, look, here's a job. Apparently there was a flood in the school, and there was water all over the place. He said, look, it's like $60 some odd thousand. Here's the check, because I know you don't have enough money to carry this job. And I looked at him, and tears came down my eyes. And he said, I'm a Christian too. And I was just wanting to see if you were for real or not. So here we did an act of kindness and just gave a gallon that we couldn't afford to give, because there was times when I was handing out $10,000 a week out of my excess. But it didn't come out of the fuel for my jet. But here now we gave this lady this, and it just came back so many fold. But, we look at it in this country, and we have children that are going hungry. And there's so much obesity in this country, and we don't do anything about it. He said, where there's shelter over the poor's head, we shall be free. Think about it. Think about all the homeless people. In New York, the first bodies that you saw that were in body bags, that the media led people to believe that there were people that had died, and the family could not come around and bury them. It was bullshit. It was homeless people. People that are dying in a bag, no one knowing who they are, what they are. Enormous problem, especially in New York City, in Miami, in many cities in America. These people have no way to protect themselves. And yet there's so many people with so many houses. So we ask ourselves, when will this problem be addressed? Then talk about the one that's most prevalent today, when the last thing we notice is the color of the skin. I had people over to my house, and my brother-in-law was over, and close friends. And, my brother-in-law is Colombian, graduated top of his class 4.0 at Georgia Tech, brilliant guy, done 6 tours between Afghanistan and Iraq. He's a construction manager for a big, big company. And he says, he was at a job in Iowa, and he says, people looked at me and treated me like I was some type of an enemy. I've been racially profiled in so many places. And he's been in this country since he was 3-4 years old. And it's sad. I was too. I remember I was at a store one time, and I was talking to my mom in Spanish, and this gentleman came up to me and said, "Speak English, you're in America." I just couldn't resist myself. Of course, I'm a hot-tempered Cuban. So I looked at him and said, "Sir, with all due respect, we spoke Spanish here 200 years before you immigrants came over. So why don't you learn how to speak Spanish?" He took off like a rabbit. I shouldn't have said that. I should have humbled myself and not said anything. Because sometimes the greatest response we give someone is the one we just stay quiet and silent. Let them live with their anger, their prejudice. Like I said before, we're never going to stop people being prejudiced. People are going to be prejudiced forever. What we need to do is not give them a reason. And I'm not talking about listening to police and obeying police. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about preparing ourselves, educating our communities and our children so that they will become somebody, so that they will have a chance to fight. And yes, I had to fight twice as hard. I've always had to work twice as hard in America to be accepted. And the truth of the matter, I never knew if I was accepted or not, but I was respected in many, many places. Now, the truth is that if Americans go to Cuba and the roles are reversed, probably the same thing is going to happen. So it's very, very sad that we live in a world that I don't ever see people ever stopping, judging others by the color of their skin. Very, very, very sad. Because we definitely do not look at the beauty within. Talking about when the skies and the oceans are clean again. Think about that. In 1992, he was talking about that. Think about climate change. Think about that now, because the world was locked down for 2 months. They said that they were able to see the color of the water in Venice, and they were able to see fish, and marine life is coming back tremendously. Isn't that something? When we have to lock down the entire world so that our natural resources are repleted, and the oceans are not, for example, the oceans are not devastated with plastic bottles. When we take care of our climate. But we live in a country and in a world that some believe climate change is very, very important. Others believe that it's just a joke. Well, I believe that it's important. I believe that the climate that we live for that future generation, for our children and our grandchildren, I can look at life real simple. I'm 64. If God blesses me with another 20, 30 years or 10, praise God. I can't lose. Like I tell you, I have no fear. If I die tomorrow, I'm just as happy as when I die, whenever now, I'm in no rush to die. But it doesn't make a difference to me because I'm always going to win. How? If I live for Christ. If I die for Christ. And if I get up there to heaven or get down into the ground and realize that it was all a bunch of bullshit, I lost nothing. All I did is live a life with no fear and with a lot of hope. So I lost nothing. But if I don't believe and I die and there is something, then it's a great gamble to take. So I could think about, hey, what the hell? I just don't give a damn about climate control, about anything, because the truth of the matter, I got a lot less years than more. But I have children and grandchildren that I adore. And what world do I want to leave them? So I spend a lot of time raising my children's conscience about poverty. I made a tough decision when we decided to walk, when in 2010, I decided to walk away from my company, and we had just gotten to the top of the mountain. We had jets, yachts, we're making millions of dollars. And I decided to walk away so I can take my children to Mexico so they can learn and see a different culture. My wife and I were both raised in poverty, but we did not live a life of poverty anymore. By God's grace, we built a multi-million-dollar national international company, me and 2 other partners, and we live a life of excess. So yeah, we had to give up the jet and the yacht, but it didn't matter because I wanted my children to realize that the world they lived in was not real. the white suburban world where they lived in a $1 million mansion, where they flew around the country in private jets, when they went to the best schools. It's easy to be a person of faith in the suburbs. Very difficult in the ghetto. There's a lot of hope for my children. There's little hope for the ghetto. So I wanted to take my children to Mexico. I wanted them to see what the real world was like. I wanted them to learn a different culture. I wanted them to see people love God that were missing a meal every day. I wanted them to see kids that had little hope. I wanted them to see kids with a lot of money that didn't care about a damn thing. Going to Mexico, one of the greatest gifts was the social conscience that my children, specifically also my daughter Isabella, got. She helped create a program, I Say No to Drugs, Obesity, and Violence, where we got kids off the streets. We started with just her friends going to a track and running. Then all of a sudden, what we did is we began to use colors. So every kid that came to a track and ran got a white jersey. Now they could move up to a green jersey. Absolutely nothing to do with physical ability, because that's what happens today. We live in a world that sports for children is so competitive. I mean, you see kids with coaches that I played baseball my life. I don't care if Mickey Mantle decides to go and become their coach. They're never going to become a baseball player. Just seeing a kid swing a bat and throw a ball, I don't care how much money their parents waste. But it's sad because they do. So what happens today? So kids get to play. The ones that don't, they're not going to sit in the bench like we did. When I was growing up, we had to play on the streets. There was nowhere else to play. So they leave, they go play video games, then they get heavy, then become obese, and all of a sudden they got diabetes and become a horrific vicious cycle. So if you're not good enough, you don't play. If you don't play, you got options. You go play video games, and that's sad. One of the things that my daughter came up with is saying, let's give these kids points based upon not physical ability, but based upon how they are as a human being. Are they coming to practice on time? If they're losing weight, we gave them a nutritionist. If they're losing weight, we gave them a nutritionist that would help them to lose. If they were obese, we gave them a nutritionist that would help them to lose weight. We didn't shame them. And if they brought a friend, if they did better in school, they brought a letter from their parents. If they were building human character, they got points. And when they got enough points, they got a green jersey. And when they got a green jersey, we taught them how to swim. And then they get points on and on and on until they get a red jersey. And when they get a red jersey, then they go ahead and we give them a bicycle. Now they're triathletes. We had a young girl that had been cutting herself repeatedly. But she was bullied. She was heavy. She didn't consider herself pretty. And her only thing was just to inflict pain on herself by cutting herself and cutting herself. Well, she came into our program and eventually she did a triathlon and she was the happiest human being in the world. Her whole demeanor, everything changed. Well, we started with 2 kids. In 3 years, we had 300 kids. So my children did get a social conscience. They realized that the world's a lot different than America. And they're proud to be American. They're born here. So that is very, very important, to be able to not look at the moment and gratify your desires for the moment, but to look at the future and make this a better world for our children and our grandchildren. I tell people, when I used to do a lot of public speaking, I said, look, if you believe that you have no more problems because now your children are adults and they've gone over all that craziness of drugs and alcohol addiction, I said, you know what? Get ready. Your grandchildren are coming. So we are in a war for the soul of our children. So the question becomes, when shall we be free? When we stand straight and walk proud. Really? Can we walk proud? Can we ask ourselves that we're doing everything humanly possible we can to not look at the color of a person's skin, to take care of our planet, to hurt when we know that a child goes hungry, to help the homeless? I think that when we do those things, we walk proud. But while we are doing nothing but satisfying the desires of our inner nature, selfish nature, to take care of ourselves and nobody else, I don't think we are free. We think that we are, I thought that I was free when I was making $1 million a month and had all the wonders any human being would ever want. The truth of the matter, you know when I was free? When we came from Cuba and had nothing. When we didn't have a penny. When my brother and I used to go to bed hungry. But we used to go to bed together. That's when we were truly free. Because I believe that freedom does not come by financial success. I believe the wealthiest person is not he or she who has the most, but he or she who needs the least. Because after all, how many cars, how many houses, how many pairs of shoes do we need? Go to prison. And then in prison, you're really going to begin to value life. When all you have is one pair of shoes and some shower shoes. When all you have is a uniform and 3 underwear. And all your belongings fit in a regular small box. Then you realize how little do we really need. And how we have sold out to this message that we need all this stuff to make us happy. Not really. We don't need to go on fancy vacations. I'm glad that at least that's one of the things that's happening today. No one's really thinking about traveling that much. We don't. It's nice if you can. It's nice to travel around the world because it's also good to teach your children about the world. But you can do that by just reading. My father, to me, was one of the most intelligent men I ever met. He dropped out of literally elementary school because he had to go work in a cafeteria because he was so poor. But my father was an avid reader. By the time my brother and I were 10 years old, my father had made us read the biography of every great figure in history. Alexander the Great, Napoleon, all those figures. And we knew history. And my father could tell you everything about the world, and he had never left his home. When he left Cuba, he came to Miami and never, ever traveled anywhere. Had no desire. He accompanied me a couple of times to Colombia just to go with me, but really had no desire. He knew the whole world. He could tell you about every culture because he was an avid reader. So perhaps in this time when we cannot travel until augmented reality comes around where we're going to be able to travel around the world and never leave our living room, then maybe we should just read with our children. Play board games, play card games. My family and I just recently started, since this thing began, playing Uno right after dinner. And we play Uno for an hour and we have a lot of fun and we laugh. I try to cheat because I think it's a lot of fun getting caught. And we just have a blast and we laugh. We hadn't done that in a long time. Why? My daughter would come home from school. She was tired. She ate quickly, went to her room to do homework till late at night. My son would be playing golf all day long. Then the same thing, he would do school at night. And my wife and I would sit there and watch some TV. And there's no interaction in that. When we moved now, the first thing we did is not have a TV in our bedroom. Because we never had one till recently. And the truth of the matter, we spend our time watching all this stupid news and watching all the stupid soap operas. Now we read. Now we play games. So it has helped us to refocus. So think about it. And I've told you before the story with my son. When I wanted to buy him anything in the world, he could have. He didn't want nothing. It wasn't until a year later that he said to me, Dad, the thing I wanted the most from you was not all the money you could give me, but was your time. And you couldn't give that to me, and it's free. That's something. And in that, knowing that really convicted me to leave my job and to retire and not to add more zeros to my account, to have enough to live a comfortable life. But at the same time, not chase that dollar and that zero and that zero and that zero. That changes nothing, but ruins our lives. Listen, I'm a capitalist. I've said that before. I enjoy working hard, succeeding. And I enjoyed living in a nice home and driving a nice car. But the truth of the matter is that if all that is lost, I couldn't care less. I lost over 50, 60 million one time, went to prison with $1 to buy a candy bar, and I was free. I was free in prison, looking at spending years and years there. But I was free. Because the truth of the matter is that all this stuff that we gather and amaze in selfishness, all they do is incarcerate us. Just more stuff to worry about. So focus on the little thing. Put family first. Look at the greatest wonders in the world. And like I tell people at the end when I speak, so I tell people, if you really want to understand the beauty of life, you must visit 3 places. You can go to a hospital and see that there is nothing more precious than health. You can go to prison and see that there's nothing more precious than freedom. You can go to a cemetery and see that there's nothing more precious than life. Remember, my friend, the ground you walk on today and tomorrow will be your ceiling one day. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you've enjoyed it, again, subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our YouTube channel, go to our website at jorgevaldespphd.com, Valdez with an S. Join our community. You'll get a free copy of my latest book, Narco Mindset Freedom Edition. And stay tuned with all the things that we're doing. There's great stuff coming up. There's great things that I'm developing, great content. And again, all I'm doing, speaking from the bottom of my heart. You don't have to agree. It's free. Just enjoy it. And like I tell people, listen, if the shoe fits, wear it. If not, just get another pair of shoes. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. And we'll see you again next week on the Narco Mindset Podcast.
We've come to the conclusion of this episode of the Narco Mindset Podcast, but your path towards hope, meaning, and redemption continues. For more information and resources to help you on your path towards finding a life built on integrity, honor, and truth, head to JorgeValdesPh.D.com and join our community. We appreciate you joining us for this episode and look forward to helping you find your turning point right here on the Narco Mindset Podcast.